It might interest you to know that in the year 2020, the chocolate producing companies actually made a whopping $130 billion, while these West African cocoa producing countries were given only $6 billion for their produce, which is the raw material used to produce the chocolate. It is quite concerning to notice that most of Africa's raw materials are bought at very cheap rates and transformed to finished products that are shipped back to Africa and sold for times 5 to 10 the original prices. Chocolate is therefore one of those products, and that applies to various raw materials found in Africa, like iron ore, lithium, platinum, gold, bauxite. All of these minerals are exploited, and the exploiters, who are the natives, are living in abject poverty. 5 years back, Ghana and Ivory Coast, the biggest cocoa producers in the world, invited Cameroon and Nigeria in a bid to consolidate their grip on the prices of their produce and eradicate poverty. But then, things didn't go as planned. Yeah, the plan was great, perfect. As an ambitious person or an ambitious nation, you would jump on such an opportunity. But ironically, Nigeria and Cameroon are going to be rejecting this offer. So now, let's go into why they had to reject the offer. But before we go to why they rejected the offer, let's see what these nations put in place, that is Ivory Coast and Ghana. What did they put in place? One of the formulae in achieving this was a premium payment of $400 for every ton of cocoa sold in addition to the market prices. All African cocoa producing countries were invited to join the initiative codenamed COPEC, some sort of OPEC, but this time for cocoa. While this was good news to the farmers all over Africa, their governments didn't sign up, notably Nigeria and Cameroon, who are among the 10 largest cocoa producers in the world, with huge potential to even overtake Ghana and Ivory Coast. They surprisingly rejected the invitation and showed no interest in joining what was supposed to be their first opportunity in taking part in decision-making as concerns the prices of their raw materials. Nigeria, through its Federal Ministry of Agriculture, gave excuses it was not taking part in the initiative due to the fact that the cocoa industry in Nigeria wasn't regulated and that its farmers would therefore not benefit from whatever the initiative COPEC was offering. But then, was this true? Nigeria didn't give the real reason for boycotting such a great initiative. Under its belt, ambitious plan, and one that was centered on national interest. Geographically, Nigeria has a higher potential to produce more cocoa than Ivory Coast and had plans to overtake the latter within 10 years. It hoped to keep the current price, thus making Nigeria a huge attractive market for cheap cocoa. So, joining COPEC wouldn't have been an option, since institutions like COPEC do regulate prices by instructing member countries to either reduce or increase production so that the laws of demand and supply favor an increase in price or, at worst, maintain a stable price. However, initially the rejection from other African countries made COPEC look somehow weak and less credible. Notwithstanding, Ghana and Ivory Coast remained glued to the COPEC they had just formed and stood their ground, implementing strictly whatever they had in their agreement for the good of their farmers. Ghana even went further and threatened banning export of cocoa to Switzerland if the prices were not raised. 5 years on, Nigeria and Cameroon showed up to the initiative. So why are they joining now? What has changed? Has the cocoa system in Nigeria suddenly become regulated and organized, as the Minister of Agriculture announced in 2018? The first reason why Nigeria and Cameroon are joining is because the farmers of COPEC countries have witnessed a significant increase in their income and livelihoods. Poverty levels among farmers in both Ghana and Ivory Coast have dropped considerably, while those in Cameroon and Nigeria are getting worse by the day. Farmers in non-COPEC countries tend to smuggle their products to COPEC countries where the price of cocoa is higher, instead of giving to their respective governments. The net impact is that The Nigerian government and Cameroon government increasingly have lesser and lesser cocoa. Meanwhile, the reverse is true for Ghana and Ivory Coast. In 2018, when COPEC was just starting off, Ivory Coast produced 1.9 million tons of cocoa. By the end of 2021, they had increased production to about 2.2 million tons, an increase in more than 300,000 tons. Meanwhile, since 2018, Nigeria has almost remained stagnant. This is a good indication that the scheme is also favoring high production rates to an extent. Anyways, now that these countries are uniting for a common good, their total production would be more than 70% of the world's total output, meaning they would have a stronger voice when dealing with preying multinational companies. Right now in Africa, a kilo of cocoa has left from $1 to a whopping $4. Isn't that great? So what can Africa learn from this? Africa is the wealthiest landmass on the surface of the earth, yet the poorest. The cocoa beans example is just a grain of rice in a cup. There are thousands of unfair trade deals across Africa that do no more but expose the most vulnerable to extreme poverty. How can you explain that the Democratic Republic of Congo is $24 trillion rich in resources, but the average citizen lives under $1 per day? How do you explain that Guinea has over a quarter of the world's bauxite reserves, but remains one of the poorest countries in the world? The list goes on and on. While Ghana, Ivory Coast, Cameroon, and Nigeria should be applauded for coming together and protecting the most vulnerable within their societies, African leaders should bear in mind that the situation in their countries can only change if they look at the bigger picture. Lessons should be learned from other parts of the world. Intra-African trade should be a priority. But as you would always have it in life, it's difficult for everyone to always see things from the same angle. This is what happens at the macro level. But do you know that even at the micro level, that is back to our realities, back to our individual realities, that's exactly what keeps unfolding in our society. And this aligns with what Tim Blixes once said. He said, many great ideas go unexecuted and many great executions are without ideas. And he concluded by saying, one without the other is useless. I so agree with him because honestly, people should learn to complement each other, alright? While others are good at conceiving great ideas and don't have maybe the funds to execute them, some do have the funds but don't have the ideas to begin with. So they often struggle with where to invest their money, alright? So if we practice complementing each other, that is partnership, right? I am talking here of partnership. And as you know on the channel, if you're interested, please just let me know in the comment section and I will definitely come up with a video briefing you on everything you need to know about partnership. So just indicate partnership in the comment section if you are interested, because partnership is something that Africans keep shying away from and I don't get why till date, alright? At times we can learn from others. In the Western world, people have grown more from partnering with each other. But here in Africa, we often think of making the profit alone, owning the business alone. It is as a prestige for Africans to feel that they own a business alone. Like I always say, an African would rather make $30,000 a year in sole proprietorship than $200,000 or $300,000 a year with 2 or 3 partners. So please, goal getter, if you are in that category of Africans who think sole proprietorship is the ideal, please from today start changing your way of seeing things, alright? For the easiest way to grow is by partnering with others.